organized labor has never represented all of the workers. Organized labor has its historical origins in the more elite sections of the working class, people with skills who had more bargaining power and leverage with employers. And so the organized labor, or the labor movement, the trade union movement, has historically been weighted towards the views of, or the interests of the more privileged sectors of the working class. So even as more unskilled workers became organized in the 1930s, and service workers have become organized in the late 20th century, the politics of the labor movement are actually quite diverse, and this conservative trend has never gone away. Now, one of the problems with that conservative trend in the labor movement is if you go back to the 19th and early 20th century, their view on immigration was a very conservative one. It was a reactionary view. It was that immigrants take jobs from us. And in fact, immigrants usually took jobs that were newly created by expansions or changes in the structure of the economy. Even as native-born workers' jobs or skills were diminished, it wasn't because immigrants were taking their jobs. There was no replacement, as it were. But the idea that immigrants took jobs, or that they lowered wages because they worked for lower wages, this became grounds for an anti-immigrant feeling. And the legacy of that, I think, is very disturbing, and it's very long-lasting, because it considers the working class to be really the American-born workers, and it considers immigrant workers to be outside of that. And during the Chinese exclusion movement, this received a very sophisticated kind of theorization by Henry George, the political economist and philosopher, who said that, well, unlike European immigrants whose lower wages does affect the overall wage, but they eventually will assimilate and they'll rise up. But Chinese can never rise up. Chinese are a degraded race. They're a race of coolies. They are permanent cheap wage, and therefore permanently will drag down the standard of white labor. And so George created a view where there was the working class, and then there were the capitalists, and then he put the Chinese in the capitalist camp, because he said that cheap labor was used by monopoly against the workers. So this is a big problem conceptually. If you think of the working class and then part of those workers are in the capitalist class, that's a real problem. But it almost seems commonsensical to many people, right? If there's problems in the economy, you say it's a working class interest, but then you say the working class interest is actually a national interest or racial interest. It's not really all the workers. It's just all the white workers, or all the skilled workers, or all the American workers, right? So once you start kicking people out of the working class, saying they don't belong in the labor movement, then you weaken the labor movement that way. I mean, it's both morally wrong, but it's also strategically stupid. If I can end on the word stupid.
You can read Mei Ngai's trenchant analysis of nativism and 15 other vitally important contributions in Immigration Matters, Movements, Visions, and Strategies for a Progressive Future, the perfect handbook for activists, scholars, policymakers, and anyone seeking solutions for one of the defining challenges of our time.